In today's fight news, we start off with their UFC Vegas 90 results. On the undercard, Nora Knoll defeats Melissa Mullins by TKO in round 2. Cesar Almeida defeats Dylan Butka via TKO in round 2. Jean Matsumoto defeats Dan Argueta by a guillotine choke in round 2. Victor Hugo defeats Pedro Falcoa by unanimous decision. Norma Dumont spoils the return of former champion Germaine de Randamie by unanimous decision. Lucas Brzeski gets a unanimous decision over Walter Walker. Alex Morono defeats Court McGee via unanimous decision. Now on to the main card, we have Charlie Campbell defeating Trevor Peek via unanimous decision. Ignacio Bahamondes defeats Christos Giagos via TKO from a head kick in round 1. Chepe Mariscal defeats Morgan Charrier via split decision. And in the co-main event, Damon Jackson defeats Alexander Hernandez via split decision. And for your headliner for UFC Vegas 90, Brendan Allen defeats Chris Curtis via split decision. Now on to the UFC Fight Night bonuses. Performance of the night, Cesar Almeida. Another performance of the night goes to Ignacio Bahamondes. And the fight of the night goes to Charrier and Mariscal. After his performance of the night victory, middleweight Cesar Almeida says that he wants a crack at former champion Chris Weidman, also saying that he's not worried about any eye pokes. During the post-fight press conference, bantamweight hopeful Jean Matsumoto calls out Raul Rosas Jr. for a UFC 306 event at the Sphere, stating, "He's a really good fighter, very tough guy. It could be 3 rounds, 5 rounds." Following Brendan Allen's win on the main event at UFC Fight Night, the opponent he was supposed to face, Marvin Vettori, took to X to say, "Allen, WTF, you calling for the title, man. You look like dog got rocked every single round and prayed you were getting the takedown just to hang in there. That was embarrassing." Brendan Allen had this to say in regards to Marvin Vettori's X comments. "If you're a man, stand behind what you say. And also, keep the same energy when you see me in person." Knowing his good friend and training partner, Chris Curtis, took the main event on short notice, former middleweight champion Sean Strickland took to X to state, "He was so out of shape and underprepared for this fight, and still won. You don't say no to the UFC, LOL. Every UFC fighter knows that. They say jump, you say how high, LMAO. Should have finished high school, LMAO." Strickland also had this to say on X. "UFC filmed Kurt. I did 1 round of sparring with him and let him win. The camera crew was confused because they know me. I said, if I spar him remotely hard, he will lose all confidence going into this fight. He's so out of shape. No excuses, but take zero pride in this victory." The Action Man also took to X, stating, "Been a while, guys. Thank you all for the love and support. Not the result I had hoped for. Thought we had it, but that's life. At Brendan Allen MMA, it was an honor to scrap again, and the score stands at 1-1, bro. Rest up and enjoy your family, man. As for me, back to the drawing board." The Action Man also stated that he suffered an injury during the fight. On X, he said, "Strained my hamstring in the 2nd. They think I tore it in the 5th. So I'm not feeling great, but I'll find out more on Monday. Thank you guys for the concern and well wishes." Ahead of his UFC 300 main event, former light heavyweight champion Jamal Hill was in attendance at the UFC Fight Night event, in which he stated, "The true king of the 205 division." Speaking of the former champion, Coach Tim Welch weighed in on his YouTube channel, stating, "I'm really curious with Jamal Hill, how much rehab and how well he rehabbed this Achilles," referencing the Achilles rupture that forced him to have to relinquish the title. So, rumor has it that the UFC 300 event is going to have something special for the fighters. BMF champion Justin Gaethje weighed in on this, stating, "I'm hoping this UFC 300 card brings $300,000 bonuses." The BMF champ Gaethje also had this to say while speaking to MMA Junkie. "They're calling this Oliveira-Sarukian fight a title eliminator, so the winner of that fight fights Islam Makhachev in June, and I fight the winner of that in preferably Madison Square Garden in November." Per his YouTube channel, former featherweight king Max Holloway also alluded that there's something planned for the UFC 300 event. He says that there's something special planned for the UFC 300 press conference. You know it's almost fight time when Blonde Oliveira shows up. On his social media, Charles do Bronx Oliveira posted a selfie of himself with the infamous blonde hairdo. While on an episode of the Believe You Me podcast with Michael Bisping, former bantamweight kingpin Demetrius Johnson reveals which fights he's looking most forward to for the upcoming UFC 300 event. The ones that get me excited is probably Aljamain Sterling's featherweight debut against Calvin Kattar, and then you also got Figueiredo taking on Garbrandt. I think these two fights are the ones that have the most storyline. In other fight news, per MMA Junkie, according to the Albuquerque Police Department, a drug-free sports international worker was quote-unquote terrified when the UFC heavyweight champion allegedly threatened her during sample collection at his home. According to the police report, Martinez, who is the worker, claimed Jones was initially cooperative with the testing agents, but became agitated when he was unable to immediately provide a urine sample. Martinez goes on to allege that Jones appeared intoxicated and told the agents, "Why are you effing people come so early? Do you know what happens to people who come to my house? They end up dead." She also alleges Jones threatened to sue them. The heavyweight champion responded to the allegations on his Instagram. "I want to address reports about me allegedly threatening a drug tester's life and taking a phone. I want to clarify that there's a video showing both drug testers leaving my home after the testing session where we exchanged a high five and a hug. Although I was frustrated with the unprofessionalism and used profanity out of frustration, it ended friendly and amicably. Nothing threatening at all. I was actually celebrating a friend's birthday party at my home, and I believe it's perfectly normal to celebrate in the comfort of my own home. I must say, this particular tester behaved quite unprofessionally and even breached standard protocol along with HIPAA laws. Throughout my 20 years of being subjected to drug tests, I have never encountered such an incident with a DCO officer before." Per Full Send MMA, Jon Jones releases security footage of the exchange with the drug testing agents after serious allegations were made against him. MMA reporter Aaron Bronstetter had this to say on X about the incident. Another interesting note regarding the accusations against Jon Jones in regards to his conduct as a UFC athlete is whether he potentially violated Section 2.5.1 of the UFC's anti-doping policy. I am awaiting contact information for Combat Sports Anti-Doping to inquire. While doing an interview with Low Kick MMA, UFC Women's Bantamweight Champion Raquel Pennington had this to say about the potential of Kayla Harrison getting fast-tracked to a title shot if she wins in impressive fashion at her UFC 300 debut. They do have a habit of when someone has a big name, they like to fast-track them. I do not find it fair. I get the business aspect of it, but I do not find it fair when an athlete comes in and just because they have a big name, they get to skip the line. The Olympic gold medalist and former PFL champion Kayla Harrison responded to Pennington's comments, stating, "I think that my record speaks for itself. That's kind of hard to argue with. I plan on doing everything in my power to make it so that they want to give me the title shot. I would be saying that if I was Raquel too. I'd be scared shitless." The UFC bantamweight champ clapped back at Harrison's comments on her social media, stating, "Yeah, that's it. I'm shaking in my boots. Not. Simple advocate for the other women in the division who have been in the UFC longer, but let me make it clear, I fear no one. Hashtag Team Rocky. After last night's WrestleMania event, a few of the UFC fighters weighed in on their social media. Bo Nickel had this to say: watching WWE WrestleMania tonight, definitely getting in there at some point in my career. Adrian Yanez: I'm loving this. Hashtag WrestleMania XL. And the double champ, Daniel Cormier, had this to say: damn, what a match. I don't know if Sammy was the guy to end Gunther's reign. DC also posted: The Rock looked good in there tonight. And I acknowledge you, Tribal Chief. Per ESPN Deportes, Carlos Contreras Legaspi. The first class of the UFC Performance Institute Academy in Mexico City has been announced, with fighters from Mexico, Ecuador, Argentina, Peru, Chile, Cuba, Costa Rica, and Venezuela. Legaspi also stated, 42 fighters took part in the combine this week, and 19 are selected to train in Mexico City for a year. Depending on their development, some of the fighters will fight in local promotions in Mexico, but some could be competing at the Contender Series or have a UFC debut before the end of the year.